At 35,000 feet above ground, rules aren't just enforced, they're weaponized. When a seasoned flight attendant throws away a black child's only chance at survival, she believes she's upholding safety. What she doesn't know is that the boy's father, calm, composed, and deadly precise, isn't just another passenger. In 3 minutes, one line from his lips will flip the flight, ground a Boeing midair, and unravel everything she thought she controlled. This isn't a story about outrage. It's about restraint, power, and the kind of justice that whispers before it strikes. You're about to witness karma take the long way home. The boarding gate at Logan International buzzed with the usual symphony of rolling suitcases, announcements, and murmurs of last-minute calls. Marcus Hill adjusted the strap of his black carry-on, steadying it over his shoulder as he took his son's hand. "We're seat 18A and B," he said gently. His voice was low, calm, the kind that didn't need to rise above the noise to command attention. Noah, just 6 years old, clutched a stuffed plushie shaped like a blue-winged superhero. The boy looked up with a curious glint in his wide brown eyes, his other hand wrapped tightly around his father's fingers. "Captain Velocity flies window seat, right?" he asked. Marcus smiled faintly. "Always." They moved down the jet bridge of Altura Flight 226, Boston to Los Angeles, with quiet efficiency. Marcus scanned their surroundings like a former soldier who hadn't forgotten old habits. Exits, passenger density, crew demeanor. But above all, he guarded the black pouch that hung diagonally across his chest. It was a sleek, insulated case with no markings, a detail that to most meant nothing. To Marcus, it meant everything. Inside was a single vial, encased in gel cooling packs, a clear liquid with no label, no branding. Not because it was illicit, but because it was confidential. The vial held the latest iteration of VX-11, an experimental compound developed under a Department of Defense-funded research program. And it was the only thing keeping his son from a seizure that could kill him. He wasn't here as a VIP, a contractor, or a donor. Today, he was just a father. That's how he wanted it. As they reached their row, Marcus gently guided Noah into the window seat. He stowed the carry-on above, then reached down to tuck the black pouch into the seat back pocket. That moment, brief, smooth, without hesitation, was enough to catch the eye of someone nearby. Karen Doyle, lead flight attendant for Altura 226, observed the motion while assisting another passenger several rows down. The pouch wasn't standard. Not a laptop, not a book, not a beverage. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She didn't speak, didn't approach. She simply noted it, mentally, and continued on. 2 decades in the sky had taught her how to spot irregularities, and while she didn't always act on instinct, she always cataloged. Karen didn't dislike passengers. She disliked surprises. Her mood that morning was already teetering. The earlier crew briefing had been rushed. She was filling in for a colleague who'd called in sick, and someone had left coffee grounds in the galley sink again. She hated when people didn't follow procedure. Procedure to her was sacred. It was the only thing that kept the chaos of 35,000 feet in check. Back in row 18, Marcus was adjusting Noah's seatbelt. "How you feeling, champ?" "Like Captain Velocity," Noah grinned, raising his arms briefly before lowering them, his energy already waning. Marcus reached into the black pouch. His hands moved carefully, not rushed, not secretive. He pulled out a digital thermometer, pressed it lightly against Noah's temple, and checked the reading. Normal. Good. From a zippered side pocket, he removed a timing card, handwritten, marked in 4-hour intervals. He double-checked the dosage schedule. The next dose would be due at 2:00 p.m. Pacific time. Plenty of buffer. He made a mental note and slipped everything back into place. Across the aisle, a woman with a business laptop gave a sideways glance. Curious, not suspicious. Just observing. Karen passed by again with a quick inspection glance. Her gaze flicked briefly to the pouch, then to Marcus, then away. She didn't stop. But something lingered behind her eyes. A calculation forming. Marcus caught it. He'd seen it before. The slight hesitation. The mental tick of someone trying to place what didn't quite fit. He didn't react. He offered her a courteous nod. No challenge, no confrontation, just acknowledgement. Karen gave a thin-lipped smile, tight, professional, and moved on. To the average observer, the exchange meant nothing. But for anyone tuned to subtle social frequency, it crackled. Not with hostility, but with unspoken tension. The kind that precedes turbulence, not in the air, but between people. Marcus exhaled quietly. He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes for a moment. He wasn't here to make noise. He had prepared for everything. Letters from Noah's doctors, copies of his clinical trial approval, an encrypted PDF with chain of custody validation for the drug, all stored on a thumb drive, on his phone, and in print in his carry-on. He was always prepared. Noah yawned. "How long is the flight, Daddy?" 5 hours, 22 minutes, Marcus replied with precision. 2 movies and a nap. "That's perfect," Noah said, leaning against the window, superhero plushie in hand. Outside, the tarmac shimmered in the morning sun. A line of other jets queued for takeoff, their engines emitting low roars that reverberated through the cabin floor. From the front galley, Karen's voice chimed over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Altura Flight 226. Our estimated flight time to Los Angeles is 5 hours and 30 minutes. We'll be taxiing shortly, so please ensure your seat backs and tray tables are in the upright position." As the announcement continued, Marcus opened his phone, not to scroll, but to check the digital monitoring app linked to Noah's smartwatch. Heart rate, steady. Neurological feedback, stable. He nodded to himself. So far, so good. Karen, back in the galley, scribbled a quick note on the flight log. Row 18B, suspicious black pouch, no markings, unconfirmed contents, monitor. Not an accusation, just a note. She wasn't worried. Yet, she didn't know that in less than an hour, her note would become a catalyst. That pouch, that father, that child. They weren't passengers in her logbook. They were a match, and she had just lit the fuse. The Boeing 787 cruised smoothly over Pennsylvania, its engines humming a low, steady lullaby. Most passengers had settled in, some with earbuds, others with magazines or in-flight screens. A peaceful hum enveloped the cabin. Karen Doyle moved briskly down the aisle, checking seatbelts and tray tables with mechanical efficiency. But her mind wasn't fully in the task. It lingered, circling like a hawk, back to row 18. She didn't know what it was exactly, but something about the pouch in the seat pocket nagged at her. It wasn't fear, not in the traditional sense. It was control. Karen didn't like unknowns. She didn't like variables, especially not on her flight. After 2 decades in the air, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Instincts that had saved her from a fake service animal with no documentation, a backpack rigged to smuggle contraband vape pens, and once, a panicked passenger with lithium batteries overheating under his seat. Her radar was fine-tuned to disruption, and that pouch, it pinged. Karen waited until the drink service had started, when passengers were distracted and the mood lighter. Then she made her approach. She crouched slightly beside row 18 and offered a smile she had practiced for years. Warm enough to disarm, neutral enough to stay professional. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice just above the engine hum. "I couldn't help but notice the black case you placed in the seat pocket earlier. May I ask what it contains?" Marcus looked up from the sketch pad Noah was doodling in. He offered her the same courteous nod from earlier, his expression unreadable. "It's my son's medical kit," he replied evenly. "Ah," Karen nodded. "Is there any liquid medication inside?" "There is," Marcus said. "It's an experimental compound under a federally protected trial. I have full documentation if you'd like to see it." He reached calmly into the front of his jacket and withdrew a slim plastic folder. Inside was a set of neatly organized papers, approval from the trial's principal investigator, chain of custody forms, even a notarized copy of the transport permit. Karen's smile faltered. Just a fraction. The documents looked official. Overly official. Not the kind someone could forge easily. She scanned the top page. The drug name, VX11, meant nothing to her. But the header, Department of Defense Cooperative Research Program, made her brow twitch. "I see," she said, voice still level. "Just for clarification, has this item been screened by TSA?" "Yes," Marcus replied. "It was inspected by a supervisor at Logan under Protocol 433C. I carry a digital copy of the clearance as well." Karen looked at him, and for a moment their eyes locked. There was no aggression in his gaze, just a patient firmness, like a man who had walked this path before, more times than she'd ever understand. She gave a tight smile, nodded once, and handed the folder back. "Thank you, sir. Appreciate the clarification." "No problem," Marcus said, returning the documents to his jacket. Karen stood and moved down the aisle. On the surface, the exchange had been polite, almost routine. But inside her chest, something twisted. She'd expected evasion, excuses, maybe even defiance. Instead, she'd gotten cold precision, clean paperwork, confidence that was too polished. It didn't sit right. She returned to the galley, took a deep breath, and poured herself a cup of black coffee. As she stirred it, she pulled out the small crew tablet that synced with cabin notes and flight data. There was no official protocol for "pouch feels suspicious." She hesitated. Then she tapped in. Passenger 18A, declared possession of experimental medication. Docs reviewed. No violation, monitor only. It was technically accurate. It was also a placeholder. The real move wouldn't be written down. Karen glanced toward the forward jump seat, where First Officer Ken Murdoch stood stretching. She crossed the galley casually, sipped her coffee, and leaned just close enough to start a quiet conversation. "Ken," she said under her breath, "you got a sec?" He turned, mildly surprised. "What's up?" "Guy in 18A has an unmarked vial in a pouch. Says it's experimental. Showed me DOD paperwork, but still..." She paused. "It's not labeled. No RX sticker. TSA might have missed it. Thought I should flag it." Ken's brows lifted. "Unlabeled liquid? Did you see it?" "Just the case," she replied. "Didn't touch it, but he's very precise. Calm. Too calm." Ken frowned. "You think it's a threat?" Karen shrugged. "Probably not. But it's enough that if something happens mid-air, I'd rather we weren't blindsided. That's all." Ken looked past her, toward the rows of passengers, then back. "Okay, I'll pass it to the captain." Karen offered a small nod. "Thanks." Neither of them noticed that a slim phone camera, tucked behind a paperback novel 3 rows behind Marcus, had recorded a silent few seconds. Karen leaning close to the first officer, lips moving, eyes darting briefly toward row 18. To the camera's owner, an observant student traveling solo, it looked like something more than idle chatter. Back in row 18, Marcus reclined slightly, eyes closed, but his ears remained alert. He'd caught the faint conversation behind the curtain. He knew the cadence of suspicion, the rhythm of doubt, the way people tried to whisper control into a system they didn't understand. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't angry. He was calculating. He glanced at Noah, who was now quietly coloring the cockpit of Captain Velocity's starship. Time to dose, 90 minutes. Plenty of time, unless someone decided to interfere. Marcus folded his hands across his lap, took a steady breath, and let the hum of the engines drown out the signal. But inside his mind, gears began to turn. Karen, meanwhile, returned to her routine with practiced grace. She'd done what she believed was right, what she'd been trained to do: monitor anomalies, preempt escalation, enforce rules, because rules meant safety. Still, something tugged at her gut. Not fear, not guilt, just a low, persistent discomfort, the kind that grows into a storm. The cabin lights dimmed to their cruising level glow as the flight leveled off above the Midwest. Drink service had begun, and the aisles buzzed with quiet conversations. ice clinks, and the occasional ding of a call button. Marcus glanced at his watch. 1:35 p.m. Pacific time. Exactly 25 minutes before Noah's scheduled dose. He opened the black pouch discreetly, his hand slipping in with the precision of ritual. The vial, nestled between chilled packs, glinted faintly. His fingers found the oral syringe, preloaded from earlier that morning. Everything was as it should be, until it wasn't. "Excuse me, sir." Karen Doyle's voice returned. Too sweet, too level. Marcus looked up slowly. She stood at his row again, smiling. This time, it wasn't the curious approach of someone seeking understanding. It was a smile with intent. Scripted. Surgical. "I need to inspect that item again," she said. Marcus remained still for a breath. "We've already discussed this," he said calmly. "You saw the documentation." "Yes, I did," Karen replied. "But I just spoke with the captain and I'm required to verify its compliance. May I have the case?" Noah looked up from his drawing, sensing the tension. His little fingers clutched his plushie. Marcus's jaw tensed just slightly, but his voice stayed level. "This is time-sensitive medication for my son. It must remain at a regulated temperature and administered at a precise interval. I'm happy to walk you through it again." Karen's smile tightened. "Sir, I'm not asking. I'm instructing. I need the pouch. Now." Other passengers began to look over. The ambient noise dropped a notch. Marcus exhaled slowly. "You're making a mistake." Karen reached out, bypassing his words, her hand darting with the reflex of habit. She snatched the pouch before he could react. "Ma'am," he said sharply now. "Stop!" But she had already turned on her heel. In 3 strides, she was back at the front galley. Without a word, without hesitation, she pulled the black pouch open. The vial slipped easily into her hand. A murmur started in the cabin. From behind the curtain, Marcus couldn't see, but he heard it. The metallic clang of the trash bin door, followed by the unmistakable hydraulic hiss of the trash compactor engaging. Crunch, a sound like bones snapping under pressure. The world narrowed to that one noise. To Marcus, it sounded like a gunshot in a library. He didn't move. Noah's eyes widened, confusion blooming like a bruise across his face. "Daddy?" he whispered. Marcus turned to him, crouched low. "It's okay, buddy. You're okay." But he wasn't. Not yet. The boy's lips trembled slightly. His drawing slipped from his lap. A shiver ran through his arms. The tremor had begun. Marcus reached into the seat pocket, pulled out the digital thermometer, and took a reading. Slight spike. He checked Noah's pulse. Fast. Too fast. One by one, the guardrails were falling. He stood, slowly, precisely, like a man rising from a battlefield prayer. He didn't yell, didn't demand. He simply walked down the aisle toward the front galley. Passengers watched him with growing unease. Karen turned just as he arrived. "You've just destroyed his only dose," Marcus said. His voice was low, quiet, but it cut through the cabin like a knife through silk. Karen straightened. "Sir, that was an unlabeled vial. It violated FAA guidelines. It was part of a federally approved clinical protocol under DOD oversight," he said flatly. "You had documentation. You had explanation. You chose to ignore it." She blinked. Her resolve wavered, just for a second. "I followed procedure." "No," Marcus said, almost whispering now. "You followed fear." He pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped once. A green indicator blinked on the screen. Call connected. He didn't raise the device to his ear, didn't leave the galley. He simply said, to no one the passengers could see, "This is Marcus Hill, Flight Altura 226. We have a Class 4 breach of transport protocol. Primary dose of compound VX-11 was destroyed by unauthorized crew action. Subject destabilizing. Advise." A pause. Then a calm, clipped voice replied, "Confirming. Chain of custody logged. Stand by for directive. Immediate action in motion." Karen stepped back. "Who did you just call?" Marcus didn't answer. He ended the call with a soft tap and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he turned to her, met her eyes, and said one line. "You just turned this plane into a liability the Pentagon can't afford." Karen froze. Her hand hovered in the air, then dropped. "Sir, He didn't speak again. He walked past her, back to his son, knelt beside him. Noah was sweating now, his breaths shallow. A small tremor jerked his leg. Across the aisle, a young woman, the same one who had recorded Karen earlier, now had her phone filming again. She captured it all. The look on Marcus's face, the stillness of a man who had not lost control, but transferred it. And in that silence, heavy and suffocating, the entire cabin waited for what would come next. Because something had shifted. This wasn't just a dispute over medication anymore. This was something bigger. For a full 5 seconds after Marcus Hill's final words, the cabin remained utterly silent. Not a cough, not the crinkle of a snack wrapper, just the low whir of circulating air and the pounding of a shared heartbeat. Uncertain, collective, heavy. Karen Doyle stood rigid, her eyes fixed on Marcus like he'd suddenly become someone entirely new. Someone she didn't recognize, and more importantly, someone she couldn't control. The young woman across the aisle, Chloe Brantley, steadied her phone in her lap. The screen recorded everything: Marcus's calm voice, Karen's frozen posture, and the charged silence that followed. Back at his seat, Marcus reached into the front pocket and removed a hardback notebook. From the inside sleeve, he pulled out a laminated badge, silver-etched with the emblem of the Department of Defense and a restricted clearance code. He didn't raise it. He didn't announce it. He simply placed it on the tray table like an unspoken declaration. Karen saw it. Her breath caught. "Sir," she started, unsure whether she was about to apologize, demand something, or defend herself. Marcus cut through her hesitation with surgical precision. "You've just destroyed a restricted compound under military joint protocol. I need your captain on the record, now." There was no anger in his voice, no raised tone, only the weight of something bigger than she had anticipated, bigger than her protocols, bigger than her authority. Karen swallowed. She turned on her heel and strode to the flight deck. Chloe, now openly filming, caught the whole sequence: the DoD badge, the frozen flight attendant, the eerie calm of a man who knew exactly what domino would fall next. Inside the cockpit, First Officer Ken Murdoch turned as Karen entered. "I need the captain," she said, her voice more urgent than composed. "We have a problem in row 18. Captain Richard Langley looked up from the flight instruments. He was a veteran pilot, calm, no nonsense, someone who'd flown diplomats, celebrities, and at least one mid-air berth. He wasn't easily rattled. "What kind of problem?" Karen hesitated. "I confiscated an unlabeled vial. Passenger claimed it was experimental medication. I followed FAA protocol, but now he's claiming it was military." Langley raised an eyebrow. "Military?" "He just flashed a DoD clearance badge. Said I destroyed a protected compound and that we've breached joint protocol." Ken looked at the captain. "If he's right. And if it's really under joint protocol?" Langley frowned. "Get me that badge." "No need," a voice said. Karen turned. Marcus stood in the doorway of the cockpit, tall, still, holding the badge in his left hand. "I don't need you to verify it," he said. "Just get on the record that I've reported the destruction of DoD-linked material. Chain of custody was logged at Logan under Protocol 433C, VX-11 compound. Subject Noah Hill, in trial window. 1 dose only, now compromised." Langley's mouth opened, then closed. He'd heard of VX-class compounds, experimental therapeutics tied to federal studies, often encrypted behind 3 layers of agency permissions. The kind of compounds that weren't just about one patient, but about multi-billion-dollar investments, national health directives, and potential defense applications. "Jesus," he muttered. "Okay." Langley keyed the cabin phone. "This is Captain Langley," his voice low, clipped. We have a potential violation of federal clinical protocol. Passenger in row 18A is claiming destruction of restricted compound. Get me flight control. We may need to divert. He hung up, then looked at Marcus. Is the subject stable? No, Marcus said. He's beginning neurological deterioration. First tremor onset was 90 seconds ago. He has under 25 minutes before secondary stage begins. Langley took a breath. Nearest trauma-ready airport is Denver. That's 34 minutes. That will be too late, Marcus replied. Langley exchanged a quick glance with Ken, then turned to Karen. Get back to the cabin. No more contact with the passenger. At all. Karen's face reddened. She opened her mouth to speak, then thought better of it and left without another word. 3 minutes later, the cockpit issued a sharp, coded transmission to Denver Air Traffic Control. Altura 2226 requesting emergency diversion. We have a Class 1 medical escalation on board with possible federal implication. Declaring emergency. Request priority. Landing. Mayday protocols were activated. The plane banked slightly to the right, just enough that seasoned travelers could feel the shift. It wasn't violent. It was subtle, controlled, but unmistakable. Marcus returned to his seat. Noah lay still, his eyes fluttering slightly. The boy's hands were twitching in small rhythmic pulses. The initial tremor stage was accelerating. Marcus opened a thermal pack from his bag, placed it gently under Noah's neck, and held his hand. Across the aisle, Chloe pressed send. The footage uploaded instantly to her social account with a short caption. Flight attendant destroys black child's only medication. Father says one line, and the plane changes course. In under 5 minutes, her post was reshared 200 times. By the 10th minute, a verified account picked it up. Inside the aircraft, passengers murmured, leaning across aisles, whispering fragments. Did you see that badge? They're diverting. Wait, is this guy military? From the back, an elderly woman gasped. I heard him say Pentagon. Karen, stationed in the rear galley, stood stiff as a steel rod, her mind reeling. She hadn't lost control of a situation in over 12 years. But something about Marcus's presence, it bent the very air around him. The other flight attendants kept their distance. Word traveled fast, and what they'd seen in the cockpit had left an impression. This wasn't a difficult passenger. This was a reckoning in motion. Captain Richard Langley closed the cockpit door with a quiet thud and sat back down in his seat. The flight path now pointed toward Denver, the emergency protocol already underway. But his mind lingered on the man in row 18. Richard prided himself on knowing how to read people. He'd spent over 30 years in the air. He'd seen turbulence, engine failures, mid-air berths, and one in-flight proposal that went terribly wrong. But the expression on Marcus Hill's face? That was something else. The calm in his voice was not submission. It was mastery. Not fear, but control. And the badge. It wasn't just military. It was deep-tier clearance, with embossing and metadata invisible to untrained eyes. Richard knew what that meant. Still, years of instinct and protocol forced his fingers to act. He tapped a direct code into the cockpit comms, bypassing customer service and contacting Altura Security Command, a line reserved for incidents that carried regulatory, legal, or national level implications. Command, this is Captain Langley on Altura 226. I have a potential violation of restricted compound destruction, possibly involving DoD Protocol 433C. Passenger claims subject involvement and displayed clearance. Requesting immediate verification of Marcus Hill, row 18A. The line went silent for almost 6 seconds. Then, a click, a voice. Clipped, cold, efficient. Captain Langley, stand by for identity match. Pause. Confirmed. Passenger Marcus Isaiah Hill. Clearance level Echo 7. Former Senior Security Engineer, Altura Systems Division, Pre-Acquisition. Contracted through DoD and DHS Joint Initiative between 2012 to 2017. Designed the biometric access systems you're using on that aircraft. Langley's breath caught. Wait, he helped build this plane? Further note, the voice continued. Hill was awarded departmental commendation for identifying internal breach attempt during pre-flight security protocol upgrade in 2016. Civilian clearance classified as operational exceptional. You are instructed to treat him as a Tier 1 passenger under silent chain protocol. He has authority to escalate internally. The voice didn't wait for a reply. It clicked off. Langley leaned back, eyes wide, heart thumping. Not with fear, but a realization that he was no longer just managing a passenger disturbance. He'd unknowingly crossed a man who helped write the rulebook. Meanwhile, in the cabin, Karen stood near the back, gripping the beverage cart like it might keep her from falling. The other attendants whispered behind the curtain. One had peeked at the live stream now trending on social media. A male flight attendant, Chris, approached her quietly. Karen, the captain says no more contact with the man in 18A. I followed procedure, she replied sharply. Chris's lips thinned. Maybe, but the man in 18A designed the cockpit doors. Karen blinked. What? He's ex-Altura, security engineer, cleared by the Pentagon. Just got confirmed. Karen stared past him, eyes clouded. Her mind scrambled to put the puzzle pieces together. This wasn't some angry dad with a questionable bottle. This was someone the company trusted to prevent hijackings. Back in his seat, Marcus leaned closer to Noah, gently adjusting the boy's collar and checking his pulse again. The tremors were stronger now, rolling through Noah's arms in waves. A soft ping alerted Marcus to a new notification. He glanced at his phone. Secure feed update. Post reached 50,000 views. Then another. #justice. For Noah, trending #1 in Boston, Chicago, Seattle. He opened the feed. The video Chloe had posted, only 4 minutes long, had exploded. Influencer accounts were reposting. Verified attorneys and medical professionals were commenting. One tweet from a Harvard neurologist read, "This is why protocol should never override human judgment. A child's life, a federal trial, all undone by arrogance. I hope this family sues them to the stratosphere." Another reply, "They messed with the wrong black father. You can see it in his eyes. This isn't a man who yells. This is a man who erases you politely." Marcus didn't smile, but he noted it, not because he wanted fame, but because the pressure of public scrutiny was leverage. And leverage, in moments like these, could be life-saving. In the cockpit, Langley made another call, this time to Operations Central. "This is Langley. We're minutes from Denver approach. I want an emergency response team waiting on the tarmac. We'll taxi straight to Gate 34, and I need corporate on the line. This is going well beyond medical." The ops supervisor responded instantly. "We've already been looped in. Legal's awake. PR's prepping a statement. And just FYI, Karen Doyle's name is now viral. Not in a good way." Langley clenched his jaw. He didn't like PR messes. But more than that, he hated being blindsided. And this wasn't just any passenger. This was a man who'd helped design the safety systems now in place. The biometric cockpit authentication, the firewall lockdown on the flight deck interface. Marcus Hill hadn't just boarded Altura 226, he'd helped build it. Karen, now trembling slightly, reached for her phone. She searched Marcus Hill Altura systems. It took less than 3 seconds to find the archived interview. Meet the man behind the code. How ex-soldier Marcus Hill redesigned aircraft security after 9/11 gaps. There he was, clean-shaven, standing beside a digital schematic of a biometric scanner. Same eyes, same posture, calm, watchful, relentless. Her throat went dry. She looked around, hoping no one else had seen. But Chris had. And he was staring at her like she was the one who just popped the emergency exit mid-flight. In row 18, Marcus's phone buzzed again. A message from Altreon Biotech. "Backup vial en route via med drone, ETA 19 mins to Denver General. Hold tight, we're with you." He typed one line in response. "Understood. Prepare for contingency." And then, for the first time since boarding, Marcus allowed himself a moment, not of fear, but of grim purpose. They had taken something irreplaceable from his son. Now, they'd learn what it meant to do that to someone who built the walls they thought protected them. The plane descended sharply, slicing through clouds that blurred like smudged charcoal against the windows. Seatbelt signs lit up. Passengers braced. Flight 226 wasn't approaching Denver. It was diving into it with purpose. Captain Langley's voice came over the intercom, steady but urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are making an emergency landing at Denver International. Please remain seated with your belts fastened. Emergency personnel will meet us upon arrival." In row 18, Marcus adjusted the position of Noah's seat. He cushioned his son's neck with a folded jacket, checked the child's breath rate, rapid but erratic, and ran a quick fingertip test against the pulse point below Noah's jaw. His lips pressed into a thin, silent line. The seizure window was closing fast. Across the cabin, Chloe's phone buzzed with notifications. Her video had crossed 1.2 million views. News outlets were reaching out for rights. Comments flooded in, a chorus of disbelief, outrage, and demands for accountability. But none of it mattered if the boy in row 18B didn't survive the next 20 minutes. As the wheels screamed against the tarmac, the plane touched down harder than usual, an intentional short-field landing. Passengers jolted forward, gasps escaping like pressure valves. Reverse thrusters roared. Brakes whined. The aircraft veered off the main taxi path, escorted by emergency vehicles that had been waiting with sirens silent but lights blazing. No gate, no terminal. The jet rolled to a halt near a restricted hangar bay, where a cluster of people in dark uniforms and medical scrubs waited just beyond the tarmac. A mobile stairway locked into place within seconds. The door flung open. "Stay seated," the purser's voice echoed. "Medical crew boarding." Marcus unbuckled and hoisted Noah gently into his arms. The boy was twitching now, his small limbs jerking at uneven intervals, his skin pallid with sweat. A man in fatigues stepped on board first, broad-shouldered, with a red cross patch and a rank insignia barely visible. "Mr. Hill?" he asked without hesitation. Marcus nodded. "We're at stage 2 on set. VX-11 is gone. Where's the drone?" The medic looked grim. "That's the problem. It's not here yet." Marcus's face didn't change. "Explain." "Altreon system flagged a breach. Someone tried to spoof the drone's ID code. Their firewall locked it down. It's grounded until cleared. Labs frozen everything. They're checking logs now." Marcus inhaled slowly. Not in panic, but calculation. "ETA? Unknown. Maybe 20 minutes if the lock clears." Noah let out a sudden sharp cry, then went rigid in Marcus's arms. His fingers curled unnaturally. "Move," Marcus said. "I need med gear now." The medic motioned. A military nurse rushed forward with a trauma bag. They laid Noah across a portable stretcher by the galley, his body starting to convulse in small, sharp arcs. Marcus opened the trauma kit. Inside, standard anticonvulsants, blunt tools, sledgehammers where VX-11 had been a scalpel. He hesitated, then drew up a dose of diazepam into the injector and pressed it gently into Noah's thigh. "Hold, son," Marcus whispered. "Hold just a little longer." In the airport's emergency control center, a red warning flashed across Altreon's secure network console. "Security override detected. VX asset drone blocked. Threat source. Internal phantom key match." The engineer overseeing the drone's release paled. "This is Hill's old code. Someone spoofed his access pattern." His supervisor leaned in. "Was it him?" "No. His profile is archived. This came from a legacy mirror server. Ghosted. This is someone rerouting through old firmware." "Can you override?" The engineer hesitated. "Not yet, but I can isolate. Give me 10. Back on the plane, Karen stood paralyzed as medics worked around her. Gone was the polished confidence. Gone was the authority. All that remained was silence. Chloe's camera was off now. Even she couldn't keep recording. What was happening wasn't content. It was life, unraveling. Noah twitched again. His lips turned slightly blue. The medic looked to Marcus. That bought us time. Maybe 10 minutes. But after that, Marcus was already typing into his phone, accessing something deeper than civilian apps. A backdoor script, legacy code. Not legal, but real. He sent a string of commands to an old server node he once helped build. The drone pinged to life. Miles away, a sleek black quadcopter lifted from Altrion's Colorado lab and zipped across the sky like a bullet in flight. ETA, 6 minutes. In the cockpit, Captain Langley received the update. "The backup compound is en route," he told Ops Central. "ETA under 10, boys in seizure state." The response was instant. "Keep the door sealed. Do not allow Karen Doyle to deplane with passengers. She's now under internal review. Legal will handle." Langley turned to Ken, voice low. "Get her name off the schedule. She won't fly again." Marcus sat beside Noah's stretcher, holding the boy's hand as his body slowly relaxed from the diazepam. Not fully, but enough to slow the tremors. He didn't cry. He didn't pray. He watched the door, waiting for salvation delivered by carbon fiber wings. At minute 7, the drone arrived. The thrum of its blades was a whisper above the chaos. A technician in Altrion livery rushed forward with a cryo box and sprinted up the stairway. "VX-11 5 mils custom batch," he shouted, breath ragged. Marcus took it without thanks, opened the cryo seal, drew the precise dose. Noah's eyes fluttered weakly. Marcus leaned in. "Hang on, Captain Velocity," he whispered. "You're almost there." And then, with hands steadier than stone, he delivered the second miracle in 20 minutes. As the VX-11 compound entered Noah's bloodstream, the tremors began to slow. His clenched fists loosened. The violent twitches gave way to small, rhythmic breaths. Marcus remained beside him, one hand on the boy's chest, the other gently pressing the edge of a cool cloth to his forehead. The medic stood back, watching silently. The hardest part wasn't the injection, it was the waiting. But Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He simply stared at his son, anchoring him back to life with presence alone. Around them, the cabin faded into background noise. The chatter, the footsteps, the buzz of phones. It all became static, because Marcus wasn't fully there anymore. He was drifting backward, pulled by memory to a night that had never stopped echoing. It was 7 years earlier, in a snow-covered outpost near Kandahar. Then, Captain Marcus Hill stood rigid in the command center, helmet under one arm, waiting for final clearance to board a medevac transport out. His wife, Lena, had gone into labor early, 12 weeks early. Their daughter's heart rate had dropped during the night, and Lena had been rushed to the hospital near their Virginia home. Marcus had received the encrypted message at 0200 hours. Emergency, wife in active delivery, unstable, immediate presence requested. He had clearance to leave, but protocol demanded a relay from the commanding officer, and that officer was in a satellite meeting, off-grid, unreachable for the next 90 minutes. Marcus had stood his ground, muscles twitching, mind screaming but lips sealed. Orders were orders. The chain of command was sacred, even for a man whose heart was being torn out in real time. He waited. By the time the CO returned and signed the release, the transport chopper had been rerouted. By the time Marcus landed in Frankfurt to connect back stateside, the call came in. Lena didn't make it. Complications. Internal hemorrhage. The doctors had tried everything, but the baby, little Eva, survived. Barely. Marcus sat in the military transport bay, numb. The sound of boots on concrete, the smell of fuel, the distant thunder of engines. None of it registered. He had followed every rule, every line in the handbook, and it had cost him his wife. Back in the present, on the emergency tarmac in Denver, Marcus's lips tightened as Noah stirred beneath his hand. The boy's lashes fluttered. His breath evened out, and Marcus whispered softly, almost imperceptibly, "Not again." He had made a promise at Lena's funeral, under a steel gray sky, with a folded flag in one hand and a newborn in the other. No more waiting, no more protocol over people. Never again would a regulation come before love. That vow had driven every choice since. It was why he left the military early, why he went into defense engineering, rewriting rules from the inside, why he agreed to work with Altreon to design fail-safes that prioritized human lives over systems, and why today, when a flight attendant threw away his son's lifeline, he didn't scream, he didn't rage, he acted. Because Marcus Hill had learned the cruelest truth the hard way. Rules don't save people, people do. Chloe Brantley watched him from across the aisle, tears in her eyes. She didn't know the full story. No one on the flight did. But something about the way he held his son, the way he had moved through chaos without breaking, had imprinted itself on her. She wasn't the only one. Online, viewers who'd once demanded drama were now falling silent, overwhelmed by something far deeper than outrage: reverence. One user wrote, "This man isn't a hero because he fought. He's a hero because he refused to lose control even when the system failed him." Another, "I cried watching this, not because of the injustice, but because I've never seen a father fight so quietly, so fiercely." Karen, standing near the galley with her arms crossed tightly, finally began to grasp the full weight of what she'd done. She hadn't just thrown away a vial, she had reignited a man's worst memory, pushed him back into a nightmare he had barely survived. And unlike most, Marcus didn't collapse under the trauma. He used it, he built a life upon it, and now that life had saved a child. Again. The medic tapped Marcus lightly. Heart rate stabilizing. He's through the worst. Marcus nodded once, then looked down at Noah. The boy's eyes opened slowly, glazed but aware. "Dad," he whispered. Marcus leaned in. "I'm here. Did we win?" A small laugh, more breath than sound, escaped Marcus's chest. "We did, champ. We did." Noah blinked slowly. Captain Velocity always wins, and for the first time in hours, Marcus allowed himself a real smile. Not because the battle was over, but because, for once, he hadn't been too late. The sterile white of the emergency hangar lights glowed down on Noah's tiny frame, now resting more peacefully on the stretcher. His breathing had stabilized. The twitching had slowed to faint, ghost-like spasms. VX-11 was working. For now. Marcus sat beside him, one hand wrapped around the boy's wrist, the other resting motionless on his own thigh. He wasn't blinking. He wasn't breathing deeply. He was simply there, anchored, as if letting go for even 1 second would undo the thread holding his son to life. Outside, emergency teams scrambled to document everything. Press cameras gathered at a security fence, and legal teams were already circling the airline like vultures. But inside Marcus's mind, none of that existed. He was elsewhere, 6 years earlier. The base was quiet at night. A low wind moved through the desert, dragging sand along the edges of chain-link fences. Marcus stood outside the command barracks, boots planted, eyes on the glowing screen of his personal phone. 2 missed calls, 1 voicemail. It was Olivia, his wife. Her voice, shaky and rushed, filled his ears as he replayed the message. "Marcus, I'm bleeding. I don't know what's wrong. I'm driving to Mercy General. They won't let me see a doctor without insurance up front. I need you. Please, just come. I think I'm losing the baby." He had frozen. For a second. Then 2. But orders were orders. He was on call, assigned to internal security during the overnight software update. His commanding officer had said clearly, no outside comms, no personal leave, no exceptions. He'd followed the rule. 20 minutes later, after the protocol window closed, he raced off base. 60 miles to Mercy General. He didn't wait for green lights. He didn't wait for clearance. By the time he arrived, they had already taken her away. By the time he walked in, they had already closed the curtain. Olivia died of hemorrhagic shock from a ruptured ectopic pregnancy. The baby, unviable. The time between her voicemail and the time he arrived, 37 minutes. He had never forgiven himself, but he had learned something that rewired his soul. Rules didn't save lives, people did, and ever since that night, Marcus Hill, the war vet, the security systems engineer, the man whose mind built fail-safes into metal and code, decided one thing: he would never let bureaucracy kill someone he loved again. Back in the present, the memory faded. Noah stirred. A faint whimper escaped his lips. Marcus leaned in. "I'm here," he whispered. "You're okay." The boy's eyelids fluttered, his fingers twitching slightly, but slower now, less violent. A nurse adjusted the IV flow. "He's responding well," she said gently. "We'll get him to Denver General in 10 minutes." Marcus nodded, his eyes never leaving his son. Across the tarmac, media vans had begun arriving. Security tried to shield the scene, but the spotlight had already been lit. The internet had decided this wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a reckoning, and at the center of it, a father who had never raised his voice, never made a scene, but had turned an entire airline upside down by refusing to lose again. Karen sat in the rear crew bench of the jet, staring down at her hands. They wouldn't stop shaking. She had trained for years to maintain calm in turbulence, to deal with drunks, screaming babies, bomb threats. But nothing prepared her for this kind of fallout. The whispers, the silence from her coworkers, the pointed glances, the knowledge that every second she remained on that aircraft, someone else was uploading another clip, another version, another angle. They all showed the same thing: her taking the pouch, her ignoring the father's calm explanations, her destroying the vial, her smile afterward, confident, rehearsed, wrong. She had followed the book, and somehow, it still made her the villain. In the emergency van headed to Denver General, Marcus sat in silence. Noah lay beside him, now under light sedation. The nurse asked, "You okay, sir?" He looked at her for a beat, then answered, "No, but he will be." She didn't ask anything else. He leaned back, eyes unfocused. Inside his mind, Olivia's voice lingered in memory. "You always follow the rules. But sometimes, Marcus, sometimes you have to choose us." Today, he had. And for once, the rules had been the ones that lost. The room was colder than Karen expected. Not the kind of cold that came from poor air conditioning, but the kind that seeped through walls lined with reinforced silence. She sat alone at a polished conference table inside a nondescript building adjacent to Denver International. There were no signs, no logos, no nameplates on the door. Just an armed escort who had walked her in, offered no words, and left her to the silence. Karen had been told she wasn't under arrest. She wasn't being charged. She had simply been requested for a formal debrief. Standard procedure, they'd said. But something in the air didn't feel standard. No one had raised their voice. No one had accused her, but the silence was its own punishment. The door opened. A man in a gray suit stepped in. He was followed by a woman in military uniform and another in a dark blue pantsuit, legal by her posture and the small stack of files in her hand. "Ms. Doyle," the man said, offering no handshake. "I'm Darren Klein, counsel for Altura Airlines." The woman in uniform nodded. "Major Lydia Chen, Department of Defense Liaison to Federal Medical Protocol." The third woman didn't introduce herself. She simply opened the file and turned on a slim tablet. Karen's heart thudded once, then twice. Darren took a seat across from her. "You're not being punished today," he began. "Not formally." Karen nodded slowly. "But you will be held accountable," he added more quietly. He glanced toward the tablet. Major Chen reached across and tapped the screen. A video began to play. It was Chloe's footage. Clean, stabilized, zoomed in. Karen saw herself on screen, smiling as she took the pouch, walking confidently toward the galley, opening the trash door. The sound was clear. The compactor's hiss, the audible crunch. Karen's smile faltered as she watched herself. Then came Marcus's voice. Calm, focused, devastating. You've just destroyed a restricted compound under military joint protocol. I need your captain on the record. Now. Karen flinched slightly in her chair. Her breath shallow. The video faded. The screen shifted. Now it was Noah, sweating, twitching. His father crouched beside him, administering emergency medication while keeping the child's eyes focused. His own jaw clenched with restraint that bordered on divine. Karen looked away. Don't, said the legal counsel softly. You need to see this. The final clip was from the onboard security feed. Infrared scan. It showed Noah's heart rate before and after the incident. The spike, the drop, the near failure. Major Chen cleared her throat. This isn't just a mistake, Ms. Doyle, she said. This was a violation of Section 9A of Emergency Passenger Medical Protection under the Joint Federal Aviation and Health Agreement. Karen's lips parted. I thought... You thought, Darren interrupted, that following the manual was enough. That protocol existed outside context. That your personal discomfort overrode a father's expertise in a child's life. The words landed like stones. But I didn't mean... No one ever does, the lawyer replied, flipping to the next file. But intent doesn't erase impact. Major Chen leaned forward. Do you know how many clinical transport patients fly every week under protocol clearance? How many of them are children? How many rely on discretion, not just documents? Karen's voice was small now. I was scared. It was unlabeled. It looked like something dangerous, the DOD officer finished. It was, but not in the way you thought. The room was silent again. Darren folded his hands. Ms. Doyle, Altura has placed you on indefinite suspension pending full federal review. Depending on the findings, further action may include termination, license revocation, or charges under Section 42. Karen's eyes widened. Charges? The legal counsel didn't blink. You destroyed federally protected medical property, under recorded conditions, with warning. Karen swallowed. I thought I was protecting the passengers. Major Chen's voice softened, but not kindly. And you almost killed one. Karen looked down at the table. For the first time since the incident began, the weight of her actions didn't just press against her professionally. It cracked something personal, something she'd spent years building. Her certainty, her conviction, her image of herself as someone who always did the right thing. And yet, here she was, watching her own footage as a cautionary tale. The attorney stood, gathering her files. Thank you for your time, she said. You're free to leave the premises. But don't speak to the press, don't post anything, and don't contact Mr. Hill or his legal team. Karen didn't move, couldn't. They left her alone in the room again. This time, the silence was unbearable. Because now, it wasn't just silence. It was truth. 3 days after the emergency landing, Marcus Hill stood behind a podium set up outside the Denver General Medical Center. The media had gathered in waves, corralled by ropes and surrounded by federal security, not to protect Marcus, but to ensure clarity, precision. This wasn't a press spectacle. It was an inflection point. Noah was recovering inside, stable but under close observation. The second dose of VX-11 had worked, but the margin had been razor thin. Another delay of 5 minutes, the doctors said, and the outcome would have been irreversible. The boy had survived, but the world had changed. The murmurs of cameras stilled as Marcus stepped up. He wore no suit, no medals, just a charcoal gray jacket, open collar, and the weight of something far bigger than anger. He adjusted the microphone, glanced briefly to the side, where Chloe, the young woman who had filmed the flight, now stood among reporters and began. I want to thank everyone for your concern, for my son, for our safety. But I didn't come here today to talk about what happened on that flight. He paused. No theatrics, just silence. I came to talk about what happens next. A ripple moved through the crowd. 3 days ago, A critical dose of a federally protected compound was destroyed mid-air by someone entrusted with the care of the public. Not because of malice, but because of misplaced fear. Because of unchecked authority. Because the system allows good people to make catastrophic decisions without consequences. His voice stayed level. Not cold, not bitter, just steady. I've been asked if I plan to sue, if I intend to take down Altura, if I want revenge. He looked directly into the cameras. The answer is no. A wave of confusion swept the journalists. Marcus continued. I didn't fight for revenge. I didn't build biometric walls so I could tear down institutions. What I want is something better. He reached into his coat pocket and unfolded a slim, embossed document. As of this morning, with the support of the Department of Defense, the Centers for Disease Control, and 5 leading pharmaceutical conglomerates, I am officially launching the Alliance for Protected Patient Transport, APPT for short. Reporters erupted into clicks and murmurs. Microphones angled forward. This alliance will build a nationwide framework for identifying, flagging, and protecting high-risk medical passengers, especially children, traveling with specialized treatments. It will include AI-enforced passenger tags, biometric scanning integration, and direct federal relay systems, so no parent ever has to justify saving their child mid-air. Chloe's jaw dropped. The cameras zoomed in. But we won't stop at airlines, Marcus said. APPT will partner with ground transport companies, hospital networks, and pharmaceutical developers to create a live response protocol. Because what happened to Noah shouldn't require clearance, connections, or combat experience to survive. One reporter raised a hand. Mr. Hill, what about the flight attendant, Karen Doyle? Are you pursuing civil action? Marcus looked directly at him, and for the first time, his voice trembled slightly. I lost my wife because I followed a rule. I nearly lost my son because someone else did the same. He took a breath. But vengeance won't bring justice. It never has. He stepped back, letting the words linger. As he exited the podium, phones exploded with hashtags already climbing the trend boards. Noah Act, Silent Justice as Alliance. For patients. Within hours, the APPT website crashed under the weight of donations, volunteer sign-ups, and requests for partnership. The Pentagon released a statement endorsing the initiative. The CDC confirmed pilot programs in 10 major airports. Biogenics, AstraCore, Medica, and 2 other pharma giants pledged infrastructure and funding. And Altura Airlines? They issued a corporate apology, but no denial, because there was no longer anything to deny. In the quiet of a hospital corridor, Chloe approached Marcus. Why didn't you go after her? She asked gently. Karen, you had everything. Video, law, rage. Marcus looked down at Noah's room, where his son now slept peacefully. Because this was never about her, he said. It was about all of them. Every system that trains people to ignore humanity in favor of handbooks. Chloe blinked, then nodded. And because, Marcus added, almost to himself, my son's still alive. That's the only justice I need. The letter came on a Monday morning. No embossed seal. No apology. Just a flat, corporate header and 2 short paragraphs. Ms. Doyle, following our internal review and pursuant to Article 17 of the Altura Employee Conduct Policy, your employment with Altura Airlines is hereby terminated effective immediately. Your access credentials have been revoked. No severance will be issued. No signature, just a typed name. Darren Klein, legal counsel. Karen stared at the paper for a long time, not crying, not screaming, just empty. She had served Altura Airlines for 12 years, without incident, without complaint. She'd missed birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. She had memorized the emergency procedures to the word, helped evacuate panicked passengers, even once performed CPR on a choking toddler. And now it ended in 2 paragraphs. By Friday, the insurance company followed. She opened the email while standing in line at the pharmacy. After review, we regret to inform you that your claim for reputational damages and legal representation assistance is denied. based on Clause 5B. Personal negligence in violation of federal protocol voids liability support. Karen's hand trembled. The woman behind the counter said something she didn't hear. She left the basket behind and walked out. The next day, she received a certified letter. This one was longer. It was from Biogenics Pharmaceuticals. It listed the exact financial damages incurred by the loss of the VX-11 compound on board Altura 226. Due to the premature termination of experimental data, delayed patient outcomes, and violation of chain of custody protocol, Biogenics reserves the right to pursue civil damages totaling $2.4 million under Statute F41. She reread that number again. $2.4 million. It felt like fiction, like something meant for someone else. But then she saw the attached footage. Again, her own face, her hand reaching for the pouch, the quiet hiss of the compactor, her smile. Days passed. Then a week. Her phone didn't ring anymore. Her inbox was empty except for press inquiries and legal notices. At the grocery store, she heard whispers. A woman in the parking lot took a photo of her and posted it online. Karen didn't have to search the hashtags. She already knew what they were. She thought about deleting her accounts, but it felt too late, like she was already a ghost in her own life. One gray morning, Karen drove 2 hours out of the city. She hadn't told anyone where she was going, not that anyone would ask. She pulled into a quiet cemetery tucked between hills and trees, the air thick with late autumn silence. She parked, got out, walked the familiar path. Section D, Row 5, Stone 42. It was clean. Someone had left small plastic dinosaurs along the edge. Karen knelt. The gravestone was simple. Michael Doyle, 1998-2010. Loved beyond measure. Her brother. He had died at 12 years old from a rare metabolic disorder. The hospital had made an administrative error, delayed his treatment window by 8 hours. By the time Karen arrived from college, he was already unconscious. He never woke up. Back then, Karen had sworn she would never let something like that happen again. That she'd always act fast, never trust words over policies, always err on the side of control. But in trying to prevent someone else's chaos, she had created her own. She touched the edge of the grave, her fingers cold. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered. But even as she said it, the words rang hollow. Because the truth wasn't that she failed Michael all those years ago. The truth was, she never forgave the world for failing him, so she tried to control every inch of it ever since. And in doing so, she broke someone else's world. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since the flight, Karen cried. Not for her job, not for the lawsuit, not even for the reputation she'd lost, but for the little boy on the plane. For the father who had stayed calm when she would have shattered. And for the realization that, in trying to protect rules, she had forgotten how to protect people. The hospital room was quiet. A soft beeping rhythmically counted seconds, each one more forgiving than the last. Outside the window, the late afternoon sun filtered through sheer blinds, casting warm, golden strips across Noah's face. Marcus sat beside him, head bowed, a paperback novel in his hand, unopened. He hadn't slept, had barely moved. A week had passed since the flight, since the emergency landing, since the dose that saved his son's life. The doctors said the neurological stress might delay recovery, that seizures like the ones Noah had experienced could affect memory, speech, even motor response. Marcus had nodded, accepted their caution, but deep down, he'd clung to the thing they couldn't quantify, hope. Now, as the machines hummed gently around them, Noah stirred. First a twitch of fingers, then a flutter of eyelids. Marcus rose slowly. "Noah?" The boy blinked, confused, disoriented. Then his gaze found Marcus. "Dad?" he rasped. Marcus exhaled. His heart, clenched in a vice for days, finally beat fully. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." Noah blinked again. Then he looked around, saw the IV drip, the pale walls, the monitor beside him. His lips parted. and with a voice still weak but unmistakably his own, he asked, "Is Captain Velocity here?" Marcus's chest shook. He laughed, the kind of laugh that cracked wide open into tears, the sound of a man who had carried the weight of death and had finally been allowed to set it down. He leaned forward, gently ruffling Noah's hair. "Not yet, pal, but I think he'd be proud of you." Noah smiled, just a little. The ghost of it. But it was real. By evening, the news had broken. Not about his recovery, about his words. A nurse, standing quietly at the foot of the bed, had recorded the moment. Not for virality, not for clout, but because she knew the country needed something good, something human. The clip was only 20 seconds long. "Is Captain Velocity here?" The father's laugh, filled with tears. His whisper back, "I think he'd be proud of you." It spread like wildfire. Within hours, anchors repeated it on national broadcasts. Morning shows ran the clip in slow motion. Pediatricians tweeted about resilience. Comic book artists drew sketches of Captain Velocity cradling a little boy in his arms. The Hat Noah Act, which had already been introduced in Congress as a bipartisan safety bill, now had a face, a voice, a reason. By day 3, the Senate voted unanimously to push it forward. By day 5, the bill was named after him, the Noah Velocity Protocol. Airlines began updating onboard medical emergency policies. Airports announced new staff training modules. Pharmaceutical companies offered expanded patient tracking infrastructure. The world hadn't just reacted. It had changed. And the boy at the center of it? He was sitting up in bed, drawing with crayons, asking if he could have pancakes instead of hospital oatmeal. Outside Denver General, a small plaque was installed near the children's wing entrance. It read, "In honor of Noah Hill, the boy who reminded us all that rules matter less than people." Marcus stood beside the plaque a week later, staring quietly. Chloe approached from behind, camera in hand, though it wasn't filming. "Think he'll remember all of this?" she asked softly. Marcus didn't turn. Some of it. Maybe not the flight, but the feeling of being loved, protected. "Yeah, he'll remember that." She nodded. "They're calling him the boy who changed air travel on CNN," she added. Marcus smiled, faintly. "He didn't change anything," he said. "He just survived. The rest of us? We finally decided to stop ignoring the ones who don't get to." They stood there in silence, until Noah's voice rang out from behind them. "Dad, I finished the drawing." Marcus turned. His son stood there in oversized socks, holding a crayon sketch in his hands. It showed a caped superhero, Captain Velocity, standing beside a smaller figure with wild curly hair. They were both smiling. 1 year later, the air in Colorado had taken on the quiet stillness of early spring, the kind that feels both like an ending and a beginning. At a corner gas station off Route 36, the night shift had just begun. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The aisles were lined with energy drinks, windshield wipes, and stale microwave burritos. The bell above the door hadn't rung in over 30 minutes. Karen stood behind the counter, her hair tied back, uniform polo slightly wrinkled, name tag that read K. Doyle. Her eyes were older than they had been. Not aged, but heavy, with memory, with reckoning. The station had offered her night shifts after her suspension turned permanent and the lawsuit settled quietly out of court. The pharmaceutical case had drained most of her savings. The insurance rejection left her on her own. She never tried to explain her side online, never fought the wave of rage. Because deep down, she knew it had always been more than one bad decision. It was a lifetime of misplaced control, of unresolved grief, of clinging to policies because they were easier than confronting pain. She wiped the counter even though it was clean. She did that a lot these days. Wiped, organized, stacked. Small actions she could get right. The bell above the door rang. She glanced up and froze. A silver Tesla Model X pulled up outside. The backlit license plate frame glowed faintly. Noah Initiative. Compassion over protocol. The man who stepped out wore a dark wool coat over a crisp button-down slacks, clean shoes. He looked like someone in motion, someone who moved from meetings to missions with a quiet sense of direction. Marcus Hill. He stepped inside the store with quiet ease, not as a stranger, not as a celebrity, just a man who needed something. Karen's breath caught in her throat. Their eyes met. Time didn't stop. It didn't slow, but something shifted. Karen instinctively looked down. She began, but the words dried up. Marcus stepped to the cooler, took a bottle of water, and returned to the counter. She scanned it in silence. The machine beeped. $2.89, she said quietly. He pulled a $5 bill from his wallet, placed it on the counter. Their eyes met again, and then he nodded. Not with anger, not with condescension, just a quiet, firm acknowledgement. A gesture that said, I remember, I endured, I moved forward, and you are still paying your price. Karen's voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. Marcus didn't reply, but he didn't need to, because some lessons don't come with punishments. They come with echoes, and some moments don't ask for answers. They ask for silence. He turned, bottle in hand, and walked back to his car. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The Tesla's headlights blinked to life. Karen stood motionless, the receipt still in the printer. The screen read, change due, 2.0, and she didn't take it. Didn't pocket the coins. She just stared at the door as it closed behind him. Outside, Marcus sat behind the wheel for a second longer than necessary. He glanced at the dashboard screen, where a new message from the NOAA Initiative headquarters glowed. Grant approved for Denver AirMed pilot program. New policy training kit shipped. Launch scheduled for May 5th. He smiled, faintly, then drove off. Back inside, Karen finally moved. She walked to the side window, just in time to see the Tesla disappear onto the quiet highway, its lights blending into the distance. She didn't cry, but her hands clenched slightly at her sides. Behind her, the radio played an old song softly, some folk lyric about roads not taken. She returned to the counter, and for the first time in a year, she stood still without wiping anything down, because something inside had finally stopped shaking. Karma doesn't knock loud, it whispers and changes everything.